My father, Robert, was a man of routines. Every morning he'd wake up at 6, brew a pot of black coffee, and read the Wall Street Journal in his favorite armchair. My mother, Eleanor, would always be right there with him, bringing him his cup with a soft smile. They were the picture of a perfect American family, or so everyone thought. But I saw the cracks. Or rather, I imagined them. From my room upstairs, I'd listen to their quiet conversations, which I twisted in my mind into whispered secrets and silent resentments. My jealousy was a constant hum, a low-frequency noise I couldn't escape. My parents were so wrapped up in each other that I felt like a side note, an afterthought in their beautiful shared life. All I ever wanted was their undivided attention, and it felt like my mother held the monopoly. The idea started as a whisper in my mind, a small, dark seed. It was a lie, a carefully constructed narrative that would turn their world upside down. I chose the perfect day, a rainy Tuesday in spring. The kind of day where the sky mirrored the grayness inside me. My dad was in a pensive mood, staring out the window, a cup of coffee steaming in his hands. He had just received some troubling news from his doctor, though he didn't share the details with me. He just seemed vulnerable. "Dad," I started, my voice soft. "I need to tell you something." The lie came out so easily, a seamless part of me. I told him I saw Mom with another man, a lie so detailed it felt true to me, even as I was saying it. I spoke of a clandestine meeting at a coffee shop downtown, describing the man's red coat and a specific hurried handshake. His face went pale, his hands trembling slightly, but he didn't question me. The trust he had in me, his only daughter, was absolute. He didn't confront Mom. He just withdrew, and the silence in the house became a physical presence. This story is just the beginning. I invite you to follow this journey to see how one lie can unravel an entire family and what happens when the truth finally surfaces. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a single chapter. The silence was the worst part. Dad became a ghost in his own home. He would eat his meals alone, retreating to his study immediately afterward. The vibrant laughter that used to fill our living room was replaced by the low hum of the television and the distant ticking of a grandfather clock. Mom, bewildered and hurt, tried to reach out. She'd leave little notes for him, or bring him a plate of his favorite cookies, but he wouldn't even look at them. The tension was palpable, a suffocating blanket draped over our lives. I watched it all with a twisted sense of satisfaction. It was working. Their perfect world was crumbling, and I was the architect. Mom would sometimes corner me, her eyes filled with a desperate confusion. "Honey, what's wrong with your father? Did he say anything to you?" I'd feign ignorance, my face a mask of concern. "I don't know, Mom. He's been so quiet with me too." The lie was a shield, protecting me from her pain and my own guilt. I'd hug her, a hollow embrace, and she'd hold on tight, searching for an answer I refused to give. She was so close to figuring it out. But my carefully woven lies were strong. My father, in his grief and anger, was becoming my ally without even knowing it. He started to lean on me more, asking my opinion on things, seeking my companionship. He was pushing her away and pulling me closer, just as I had intended. Dad's health began to decline rapidly. The doctor's visit he mentioned was more serious than I had initially realized. The stress of the crumbling marriage, combined with his illness, took a heavy toll. He spent most of his days in bed, a frail shadow of the strong man he once was. He called his lawyer one afternoon, a hushed conversation that made my heart pound with anticipation. I knew what he was doing. He was changing his will. My father, in his misguided pain, was preparing to disinherit my mother. The news filled me with a cold sense of triumph. I was so close to my goal, to finally having it all. The thought of my mother, left with nothing, was a bitter, satisfying victory. Mom, unaware of the legal maneuvering, was a constant presence by his side. She was so devoted, so full of love, even as he pushed her away. She'd sit with him for hours, reading his favorite books, or just holding his hand. Her love was so pure, so unconditional, that a small, inconvenient pang of guilt would surface from time to time. But I'd quickly push it down. This was my plan, my destiny. This was how I would finally get the attention and the life I deserved. The house, the money, everything. It was all going to be mine. My father would die thinking he was protecting me from a woman who had betrayed him, and I would inherit a fortune built on a foundation of lies. The end came quietly, as a whimper, not a bang. Dad passed away peacefully in his sleep one night, with Mom holding his hand. The grief that washed over me was complicated. There was genuine sadness for the loss of my father, but it was tainted by the cold, hard excitement of what was to come. The day after the funeral, the lawyer, Mr. Thompson, arrived. He was a solemn, elderly man with a kind face that seemed to have seen it all. He sat us down in the living room, a place that felt so empty without my father's presence. Mom's eyes were swollen from crying, her face pale. She was in a daze, still unable to grasp the reality of her loss. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. Robert's final will has been prepared and executed, he began. In it, he states his wishes in no uncertain terms. He has left all his personal and financial assets, including the family home, to his daughter, Amelia. A hush fell over the room. Mom looked at me, her eyes wide with shock and a deeper, more profound hurt. And as for Eleanor, he continued, Robert has explicitly stated that he wishes for her to receive nothing. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. My mother's world came crashing down. She looked at me, a silent question in her eyes. I just stared back, my face a carefully constructed blank canvas. My story is far from over. If you want to see what happens next, and how the truth about my father's will comes out, remember to hit the subscribe button. The aftermath was a storm of raw emotion. Mom was devastated, not just by the financial loss, but by the ultimate betrayal. The man she had loved and cared for had, in the end, pushed her aside. She tried to talk to me, to find some explanation, but I gave her none. I was the new owner of the house, of the money, and with it came a chilling sense of control. She had to ask me for permission to stay, to live in a house that was no longer hers. Please, Amelia, she pleaded, her voice a whisper. Just for a little while, until I can get on my feet. My heart felt like a block of ice. I agreed, but my terms were cold and calculated. She could stay, but she had to abide by my rules. My best friend Sarah came over a few days later. She was shocked by the new dynamic in our house. What is going on, Amelia? You're acting like a stranger, she said, her voice filled with concern. My dad left me everything, Sarah. That's what's going on, I replied, my voice laced with a bitter triumph. I told her the same lies I had told my dad, painting a picture of my mom as a deceitful, unfaithful woman. Sarah was a good friend, loyal and trusting. She believed me, or at least she pretended to, but I could see a flicker of doubt in her eyes, a questioning look that made me uneasy. The lie was getting harder to maintain. The house felt like a cage. The silence that had once been a sign of my success was now a source of my torment. The family home, a place of shared memories, now felt cold and empty. Mom moved her things to a small guest room, a painful symbol of her new place in the world. I would see her from time to time, a quiet figure in the hallways, her eyes filled with an unspeakable sadness. I started spending my days going through my father's belongings, a task that I had once imagined would bring me joy. but it was just empty. His clothes still smelled of his cologne. His books were filled with his notes in the margins, and every item was a painful reminder of the man I had so cruelly deceived. I started to withdraw from my friends, from life in general. The money was just a number in a bank account, and the house was just a collection of rooms. I had everything I had wanted, but the victory felt hollow. One evening, I was going through a box of my dad's old documents and found a small hidden folder. Inside was a letter, dated the day before he passed away. It was addressed to me, a final confession. He wrote about the immense pain he felt from my mother's supposed betrayal and how it had broken him. But then, he wrote about the moment he saw her holding his hand in his sleep, and a flicker of doubt he felt, how he regretted the will. But it was too late. He ended the letter by saying he hoped I would take care of my mother, and that he loved us both. The letter was a punch to the gut. The words swam before my eyes, blurring into a painful confession. My father had died with a flicker of doubt, a final regret. He hadn't completely believed my lie. He had just been too hurt, too weak, to do anything about it. And he still had hope that I, his daughter, would do the right thing. The weight of my actions came crashing down on me, a suffocating realization of the damage I had done. I looked around at the house that was now mine, and it felt like a monument to my selfishness. Every room, every piece of furniture, was a painful reminder of the life I had torn apart. I couldn't live with the silence, the guilt, the emptiness anymore. I went to my mother's room, a tiny space that felt so foreign. She was sitting on her bed, a book open on her lap. She looked up, her eyes tired but not devoid of hope. "Mom," I said, my voice breaking. The tears started to flow, hot and fast. "I have to tell you something." I told her everything. The lie, the will, the letter. Every word was a knife. But I kept going, needing to confess, needing to unload the burden that had become my life. She listened, her face a mixture of shock, confusion, and a quiet, profound grief. "The truth is finally out, and you'll have to wait to see how my mother reacts. If you want to find out what happens next, and how I start to face the consequences of my lies, be sure to subscribe to the channel." My confession was met not with anger, but with a weary sadness. Mom didn't scream, didn't yell. She just looked at me, her eyes filled with a grief that went beyond just my actions. "Why, Amelia?" she asked, her voice a soft, broken whisper. "Why?" I had no answer. How could I explain the jealousy, the loneliness, the twisted desire to be the center of their world? The truth felt pathetic, a flimsy excuse for such a cruel act. She told me to leave her alone, to give her time to process everything. So I did. I walked out of the room, leaving her alone with the painful truth I had just confessed. The next few days were a blur. I stayed in my room, the shame and guilt of physical weight on my shoulders. I felt like a stranger in my own home, a prisoner of my own making. Sarah called, but I didn't answer. I couldn't face her, couldn't tell her the truth after all the lies I had told her. The house, which I had once coveted so much, felt like a prison. The silence was no longer a sign of victory, but a constant reminder of my isolation. I had pushed away the only two people who truly loved me, all for an inheritance that felt like a curse. Mom left a week later. She packed a small bag, leaving behind all the memories of the life we had once shared. She didn't say goodbye, just left a note on the kitchen counter. It was short and to the point. "I need to find myself, Amelia. I need to be somewhere where your father's memory isn't tainted by your lies. I love you, and I hope one day you can find peace." The note was a final, painful blow. I had destroyed our family, and now I was completely alone. The house was a monument to my selfishness, a cold, empty tomb. The money meant nothing to me. The expensive car, the clothes, the endless possibilities. They all felt hollow. I realized that what I had truly craved was not the money, but the love and attention that I had so desperately sought. I had a fortune, but I had lost everything that mattered. I sat on the floor of the empty living room, the cold air seeping in through the windows. The silence was deafening, a constant reminder of the life I had destroyed. Life became a series of monotonous, empty days. I lived in a state of suspended animation, a ghost in my own home. My friends, having heard the rumors, slowly distanced themselves. My social media was filled with well-meaning but hollow messages of, "Are you okay?" to which I never replied. The truth had a way of spreading like wildfire, and I was now known as the girl who stole from her own mother. One afternoon, I found a box of old photographs, a collection of memories from my childhood. There was one of me, my mom, and my dad, all smiling, a true family. A wave of regret, so powerful it felt like a physical force, washed over me. I finally understood what I had lost. It wasn't just a family, it was a home, a life built on love and trust. I knew I couldn't undo the damage I had done, but I had to try to make things right. I went to the bank, and with a trembling hand, I transferred half of the money to my mother's account, along with a simple, tear-stained note. "I am so sorry, Mom." It was all I could do. I hadn't heard from her since. I was left alone in the house, a prisoner of my own making, learning to live with the consequences of my greed and my unforgivable lie. The house, the money, the isolation. It was a life I had built myself, and now I had to find a way to rebuild from the wreckage. This story is a stark reminder that our choices, especially our darkest ones, will always come back to us. I hope this journey has given you a lot to think about. If you want to continue seeing stories that explore the complexities of human nature, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.